I'm sorry, but we can't just hand out cash to anyone who walks in, Bank Manager Rachel Simmons said, her voice dripping with condescension as she pushed the black woman's withdrawal slip back across the counter. Especially not amounts like this. Those words echoed through the marble lobby of Sterling National's flagship branch as a circle of staff had formed. One young woman leaned over to her colleague, whispering just loud enough to be heard, "Yeah, right. She doesn't even look like she has that kind of money." Laughter rippled through the group as Monica Reed, the undercover black CEO, stood there. Dignity intact, but humiliation by the second. What these employees didn't know was about to change everything about their careers, their lives, and this bank forever, when the woman they thought was not deserving to withdraw her own money revealed who she really was. Have you ever been judged before someone even knew your name? Who you are? This story gives the most satisfying example of instant karma you'll see this year. And if you believe everyone should be treated fairly and respected no matter what their skin color is, comment respect first in the comment section and hit the subscribe button now. This story began when an elegant black woman stood calmly at the counter, her posture straight, her expression composed despite being surrounded by bank staff whose faces range from dismissive to openly mocking. This was Monica Reed, though none of the employees recognized her. 25 years before that humiliating moment in the bank lobby, Monica Reed stood behind a different counter, wearing a pressed uniform and a name tag that read, Teller Trainee. Her journey from that first position to the executive suite is nothing short of extraordinary. Monica didn't come from money or connections. What she had was determination, intelligence, and an unwavering work ethic that propelled her through the ranks of Sterling National. From teller to loan officer, from branch manager to regional director, Monica mastered every role she took on. Along the way, she earned her MBA from Wharton, led record-breaking quarters in 3 different divisions, and developed a reputation as the problem solver who could turn around struggling branches. When she reached the C-suite as Chief Operations Officer 5 years ago, many thought she had hit the glass ceiling. They were wrong. 3 months ago, when Sterling's CEO announced his retirement, the board of directors found themselves at a crossroads. Despite Monica's impeccable credentials and 2 decades of loyal service, several board members expressed concerns about her readiness to lead. In private meetings, these concerns seemed to focus less on her qualifications and more on whether major clients would be comfortable with her black skin as the face of the company. After a contentious vote, Monica Reed became the first black woman to lead Sterling National. Her acceptance speech was gracious but pointed. "I will ensure that every client, every employee, and every community we serve experiences the same level of respect and excellence. No exceptions." These weren't empty words. Behind closed doors, Monica had been tracking a disturbing pattern of customer complaints. While overall satisfaction scores looked good, digging deeper revealed significant disparities in service quality. Certain branches, certain demographics, the numbers told a troubling story that the previous leadership had buried. Rather than relying on reports and secondhand accounts, Monica decided to see for herself. The undercover boss approach wasn't just a gimmick. It was the only way to experience the unfiltered reality her customers faced. The flagship branch downtown was managed by Rachel Simmons, a 20-year veteran with an impressive record. On paper, her numbers were exceptional. High transaction volumes, excellent new account generation. But Monica had noticed something in the raw data. While formal complaints were few, customer exit interviews told a different story. People were leaving, especially customers of color, citing poor service and feeling unwelcome. When pressed, most wouldn't elaborate, simply taking their business elsewhere. It was 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday when Monica Reed walked through the revolving doors of Sterling National's flagship branch. She had deliberately chosen modest attire, a simple navy hoodie on dark slacks and a face cap. Her natural hair was styled conservatively, and her makeup was understated. She carried a well-maintained but not designer purse. To anyone looking, she appeared to be a casual middle-class woman, not the CEO of the entire institution. Monica took a seat in the waiting area, ostensibly checking her phone, but actually observing the customer service dynamics unfolding around her. What she witnessed in those first 15 minutes was more revealing than 1,000 customer surveys. A white businessman in an expensive suit approached the entrance. Before he even reached the counter, a staff member intercepted him with a smile. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" The man was escorted directly to a desk, bypassing the line entirely. Minutes later, an elderly Asian couple entered. They were directed to take a number and wait. No smile, no warmth, just a pointing finger toward the seating area. A young white woman in casual clothes approached the quick service counter. The teller chatted amicably with her, asking about her weekend plans. Transaction completed in under 2 minutes. Then a Hispanic man in janitor work clothes stepped up to the same counter. Suddenly, there were additional questions, requests for multiple forms of ID, and a suspicious once-over from the teller. His simple check cashing took nearly 10 minutes. Monica watched this pattern repeat itself 6 more times before she finally approached the counter herself. By then, she had been waiting for 37 minutes, despite the branch being only moderately busy. 3 white customers who arrived after her had already been served. When Monica finally reached Teller Lauren's window, the young woman's smile faltered. "How can I help you?" she asked, her tone noticeably cooler than it had been with the previous customer. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please," Monica said, sliding her ID and withdrawal slip across the counter. The amount, $30,000. Lauren's eyes widened slightly. She examined Monica's driver's license, then looked at her face, then back at the license as if confirming they were indeed the same person. "This is a large amount," she said, her voice rising just enough to catch the attention of her colleague at the next window. "Yes, it is," Monica replied calmly, "but it's well within the daily limit for my account type." Lauren didn't respond. Instead, she turned and whispered something to James, the senior teller at the next station. James glanced over, nodded, and then walked over, positioning himself directly behind Lauren so he towered over the counter. "Is there a problem here?" he asked loudly. Not directed at Lauren, directed at Monica. Heads turned throughout the lobby. Other customers stared. An older woman clutched her purse tighter. Monica felt the weight of every eye in the place. The silent judgment. The immediate assumption that she must be doing something wrong. With remarkable composure, Monica placed her bank card on the counter alongside her ID. "No problem at all. I'm simply making a withdrawal from my account." James picked up her ID, studying it with exaggerated scrutiny. "We've been seeing some unusual activity on these types of accounts lately," he said, emphasizing these types just enough to make his meaning clear. "We need to be extra careful." "What types of accounts would those be exactly?" Monica asked, her voice steady. James ignored the question. Lauren, can you pull up the account history, please? Let's see what kind of transaction patterns we're looking at. As Lauren tapped at her keyboard, another staff member drifted over. Stephen, according to his name tag, leaned in and whispered something to James, not quite quietly enough. Probably one of those money laundering or check cashing schemes. Stephen didn't even try to hide his contempt as he looked Monica up and down, taking in her modest clothing and natural hair with a smirk. We just need to verify the funds are actually yours, he said with false sweetness. You understand, right? It's for your protection. The humiliation was calculated and deliberate, yet Monica maintained her dignity, standing straight, voice unwavering. I understand the need for security. I've provided my identification and bank card. I'm a customer of this bank and have been for many years. I'd like to complete my transaction now, please. That's when Stephen called over Rachel Simmons, the branch manager. She strode across the lobby with the confidence of someone who had never been questioned in her life. Her expression was a practiced blend of concern and authority as she approached Monica. Ma'am, I understand there's some confusion about your withdrawal request, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. She didn't introduce herself, didn't ask for her name, just immediately assumed a position of authority over her. There's no confusion on my part, Monica replied. I'm simply trying to access my own money. Rachel's smile didn't reach her eyes. $15,000 is a significant amount of cash. May I ask what it's for? This question, one that had not been asked of a single white customer, making large transactions that morning, hung in the air between them. The double standard couldn't have been more blatant if they'd put up a sign. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as Rachel Simmons stared down at Monica, her face a mask of practiced concern that couldn't quite hide the disdain underneath. The bustling bank lobby seemed to quiet around them, as if the very air was holding its breath in anticipation of what would come next. Mrs. Reed, she said, finally glancing at her ID, her fingers holding it by the edges as if reluctant to touch it too much. This amount doesn't seem appropriate for someone like you. This bank prides in dignity, and we have a class of customers we serve, so we can't serve you here. There it was. The mask had slipped. In those few words, Rachel had revealed exactly what this was about. Not security protocols, not banking regulations, just pure, unfiltered prejudice dressed up in corporate speak. Monica felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same sensation she'd experienced countless times throughout her career. That moment when someone underestimates you, dismisses you, reduces your entire existence to a stereotype. Behind Rachel, the staff exchanged knowing glances. Lauren looked down, seemingly uncomfortable, her hands fidgeting with a stack of deposit slips that didn't need straightening. Her body language screamed discomfort, but her silence made her complicit all the same. James and Stephen didn't bother hiding their amusement. Stephen actually snickered, covering his mouth with his hand in a poor attempt to conceal his laughter. I'm curious, Stephen chimed in, leaning against the counter with newfound confidence now that his boss was backing him up. His voice carried deliberately, ensuring nearby customers could hear. Did you come into some money recently? A settlement, perhaps? Or maybe an inheritance? Or maybe you laundered the money? The implication was crystal clear. In their minds, there was simply no legitimate way a black woman could have access to this kind of money. It had to be some kind of windfall, some stroke of luck rather than hard work, intelligence, and determination. A white young mother with two children had paused her transaction at the next window, openly watching the scene unfolding. She pulled her children closer, whispering something in their ears, teaching them, perhaps unconsciously, to view Monica as someone suspicious, someone who didn't belong. Monica took a deep breath. Her composure was remarkable given the circumstances. Not a hint of the rage she must have felt showed on her face. "I'd like to speak with someone who can actually help me complete my transaction, please. Someone with the authority to override whatever concerns you seem to have." Every word was carefully chosen, professional, reasonable, giving them no ammunition, no excuse to label her as angry or difficult. Rachel's smile tightened, a flash of anger crossing her features at being challenged. "Ma'am, I am the highest authority in this branch. I'm the manager. There is no one else for you to speak with." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice to a stage whisper that was still perfectly audible to everyone nearby. The scent of her expensive cologne, likely meant to convey success and authority, wafted across the counter. "Perhaps you might be more comfortable at the check cashing place down the street. They're more accustomed to handling your type of banking needs. You should get maybe $1,000 or two there." The dismissal was so blatant, so disrespectful, that a collective intake of breath could be heard from customers who were shamelessly eavesdropping on the exchange. Behind the teller windows, the daily operations of the bank continued. The cash counting machines whirred quietly in the background. The security cameras mounted in each corner of the ceiling recorded everything. Every expression, every word, every microaggression playing out in the high-definition detail. Monica glanced up at one of those cameras, a flicker of something, perhaps knowledge, crossing her face so briefly that no one noticed. Without another word to Rachel, Monica reached into her purse, a modest leather bag that had been a gift from her team when she was promoted to COO, and pulled out her phone. "Excuse me for a moment," she said, stepping slightly away from the counter while still remaining in full view of everyone. As she dialed, Stephen nudged James, both of them watching with smirks on their faces. Stephen whispered something that made James stifle a laugh. Lauren, the teller who had first assisted Monica, kept her eyes down, but her discomfort was palpable in the rigid set of her shoulders. Another customer, an older black man in a postal worker's uniform, watched the scene with a resigned expression that spoke volumes. This wasn't surprising to him. This was Tuesday. This was banking while black. "Yes, hello." Monica spoke into the phone, her voice taking on an even more professional tone than before. "This is Monica Reed calling." Stephen mimicked her posture exaggeratedly, standing up straight with his nose in the air, mouthing, "Monica Reed calling," to James, who stifled a laugh. Stephen's performance was for the benefit of the entire staff, a show of dominance, of belonging at Monica's expense. The bank's mission statement was prominently displayed on the wall behind them, building financial success together with trust, respect, and integrity. The words now seemed like a cruel joke in contrast to the scene unfolding beneath them. Rachel stepped forward, patience clearly exhausted. Her polished leather shoes squeaked slightly on the marble floor as she moved, the sound oddly loud in the tension-filled space. "I'm going to have to ask you to conclude your business elsewhere. You're creating a disturbance in our branch. The lower banks out there will be able to serve you, not here." The irony was staggering. The only disturbance was the staff's treatment of a legitimate customer attempting to access her own funds. But in Rachel's mind, and in the minds of those who shared her biases, Monica's mere presence, her audacity to expect equal service, was itself the disturbance. Monica continued her call as if she hadn't spoken. Yes, I'm still at the downtown branch. No, they've refused the transaction. Yes, that's correct. Her calm was unsettling to Rachel. People in her position, being denied service, being humiliated publicly, were supposed to react in one of two ways: explosive anger that would justify removal, or defeated acceptance that would end in retreat. Monica's composed resistance followed neither script, and it clearly unnerved her. Ma'am, Rachel's voice rose, the veneer of professionalism cracking further. If you don't leave the premises immediately, I'll be forced to call security. Monica turned slightly away from her, still speaking clearly into the phone. The bank's large wall clock ticked loudly, marking each second of the standoff. It was 10:17 a.m., a time that would be recorded in numerous termination documents in the hours to come. Rachel signaled to James, who reached for the security phone extension. The situation was escalating by the second. Other employees had stopped what they were doing to watch, sensing that something significant was unfolding. That's when Monica turned away from Rachel and spoke her final words into the phone, words that would change everything in the next few moments. Diane, I need you in the downtown branch now. The name hit Rachel like a physical blow. Diane, as in Diane Vaughn, head of operations for the entire bank. Monica knew her. Monica had her direct number. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Rachel's face, the first crack in her confident facade. Who was this woman, really? How did she have direct access to one of the most senior executives in the company? The question lingered in her mind for only a moment before her arrogance reasserted itself. Probably just name-dropping, she thought. A bluff. People like her always tried to intimidate with claims of knowing important people. Hit the subscribe and like button if you support Monica, the undercover boss in this story. In the headquarters branch, the executive suite of Sterling National suddenly burst into activity. Diane Vaughn stood bolt upright at her desk, her face draining of color as she recognized the voice on the other end of the line and realized who was calling her. Diane had worked alongside Monica for over a decade. They had broken countless glass ceilings together, navigated the treacherous waters of corporate finance as women of color, supported each other through personal and professional challenges. Get me every customer complaint from the downtown branch for the past year, she barked at her assistant. Every single one, even the ones that didn't make it into the formal review process. Assistants scattered as she grabbed her tablet and security badge. Her designer heels echoed sharply on the marble floor as she rushed toward the executive elevator, the one that could take her directly to the lobby without stopping. In the adjacent conference room, board members who had been reviewing quarterly projections found themselves suddenly interrupted as security feeds from the downtown branch were pulled up on the main screen. "What's happening?" asked Jonathan Prescott, the chairman of the board, as technicians scrambled to enhance the audio. "You need to see this, sir," replied the head of security, his expression grim. The color drained from Prescott's face as he recognized the woman being mistreated by their staff. That's Monica Reed," stammered another board member. "That's our CEO." "Yes," the security director confirmed, And this has apparently been going on for 15 minutes already. On screen, they could see it all unfolding in real time. The board watched in stunned silence as their CEO was treated with contempt in her own bank. "Record everything," Prescott ordered, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Every second, every word, and get legal up here immediately." Back in the bank lobby, the temperature seemed to drop several degrees as Rachel Simmons began to realize that something was very, very wrong. The confidence drained from her face, replaced by the first flickers of uncertainty. Unknown to her and her staff, the security cameras had also captured their treatment of other customers throughout the morning. The pattern of discrimination that Monica had witnessed firsthand. Every interaction, every disparate treatment, every preferential service was now preserved as evidence. The same system designed to protect the bank from external threats was about to expose the threat that had been inside all along. Monica Reed stood perfectly still, phone now returned to her purse, watching as the realization slowly dawned on Rachel Simmons' face that she might have just made the biggest mistake of her career. On the 21st floor of Meridian Financial's headquarters, chaos had erupted in the executive suite. The normally quiet observation room, where security feeds from all branches were monitored, had transformed into a war room in a matter of minutes. "Pull up every angle we have," Diane Vaughn commanded, her voice tight with controlled fury. The head of operations stood ramrod straight in her tailored navy suit, her usual composed demeanor replaced by an intensity that had her staff moving with unprecedented urgency. "I want audio. I want facial recognition. I want timestamps on everything." The security team scrambled to comply with her directives, fingers flying across keyboards as they pulled up multiple camera views of the downtown branch lobby, screens filled with different angles of the same humiliating scene. Monica Reed, their CEO, being treated like a criminal in her own institution. "Camera 3 has the clearest audio," reported a young technician, his face pale as he realized the severity of what they were witnessing. "And we have continuous footage from the moment she entered the branch at 9:15 a.m. In the adjacent boardroom, 3 board members who had been in a quarterly planning meeting watched in stunned silence as the security feeds populated the wall-sized screens. They could see everything: the smirks, the eye rolls, the blatant disrespect, the different treatment of customers based solely on appearance. The pattern was undeniable, and it was playing out in real time before their eyes. "Yes," replied Jonathan Prescott, the board chairman, his expression grim beneath his silver hair. "That's our CEO." The audio feed kicked in just as Rachel Simmons was saying, "These check cashing places are really better equipped for your needs." Her voice, dripping with condescension, filled the boardroom. This wasn't just bad customer service. This wasn't just rudeness. This was the systematic discrimination they had all convinced themselves didn't exist in their institution. "This is happening in our flagship branch," whispered Caroline James, the third board member present. She didn't need to finish the question. The implication hung in the air. How many other customers face this treatment daily? How many had simply walked away, taking their business elsewhere, never filing complaints, never escalating to management? "Get me everything we have on Rachel Simmons," Diane Vaughn barked at her assistant while gathering her tablet and security badge. "Employment history, performance reviews, customer complaints, everything, and call legal. Tell them to meet me downstairs in 10 minutes." As she rushed toward the elevator, Diane scrolled through her tablet, pulling up branch analytics. The downtown branch's performance metrics filled the screen. Impressive at first glance. Top-tier new account generation, strong loan origination numbers, excellent deposit growth. But when she applied filters to disaggregate the data by customer demographics, the true picture emerged. The patterns were undeniable, hidden in plain sight within their own data. Rachel's branch had the highest account rejection rate for minority applicants, the lowest rate of loan approvals for Black business owners, and a customer attrition rate among people of color that was triple the bank's average. How had they missed this, or had they simply chosen not to see? Back in the branch lobby, tensions were escalating by the second. Rachel had summoned the security guard, a young man named Jason, who looked deeply uncomfortable with the situation. Barely 25, new to the job, and clearly unprepared for the moral complexity of what he was being asked to do. "I need this woman escorted from the premises," Rachel instructed, not looking at Monica as if she were an object rather than a person. Her voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had never had her authority questioned within these walls. "She's creating a disturbance and refusing to leave after being denied service." The security guard hesitated, clearly sensing something wasn't right about the situation. His gaze flickered between Rachel, his technical superior, and Monica, whose composure stood in stark contrast to the manager's growing agitation. "Sir," Monica said calmly to the guard, "I have every right to be here. I'm a customer of this bank attempting to access my own funds. I have provided all required identification and have broken no rules or laws." Jason, the security guard, shifted his weight from one foot to another, clearly conflicted. His training had covered robbery protocols and emergency procedures, but nothing had prepared him for this moral gray area. "Ma'am," Rachel's face flushed with anger at the guard's hesitation and at being contradicted in front of her staff. "This is a private business, and we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who may be attempting to commit fraud." The accusation hung in the air. Fraud. Without evidence, without foundation, Rachel had leveled one of the most serious allegations possible in a banking environment. And yet, to those watching, the true fraud was becoming increasingly apparent. The fraud of equal service, of meritocracy, of fairness. The staff had formed a literal wall behind Rachel. Lucas standing with arms crossed, his security badge twisted backwards so his name wasn't visible. Eric with a satisfied smirk, twirling a pen between his fingers in a gesture of casual contempt. And even Megan, who had seemed uncomfortable earlier, now standing in solidarity with her colleagues, though her eyes remained fixed on the floor. The message was clear. It was all of them against Monica. A unified front of institutional power, aligned against a single customer whose only crime was expecting to be treated with basic dignity. Other customers in the branch had taken notice of the confrontation. Some pretended to focus on their own transactions, eyes darting occasionally toward the scene. Others watched openly, their expressions ranging from discomfort to prurient interest in the unfolding drama. A middle-aged white man who had been waiting in line stepped forward, inserting himself into the situation with the confidence of someone who had never questioned his right to occupy any space. "Listen, lady, some of us have real banking to do today," he said, gesturing impatiently. "If you're not going to leave, at least stop causing trouble for everybody else." The irony was painful. Monica thought of the countless meetings where she had emphasized customer experience as the cornerstone of their business model. The training programs she had championed, the inclusion initiatives she had funded, all seemingly worthless in the face of deeply ingrained biases that no corporate memo could eradicate. Rather than argue, Monica quietly raised her phone and continued documenting the escalating situation. She recorded the staff's expressions, the security guard's discomfort, the customer's intervention, all of it preserved with crystal clarity. Each second of footage was another nail in the coffin of careers built on discrimination. Rachel noticed the recording, and her expression darkened further. The vein in her temple throbbed visibly as she struggled to maintain control of a situation that was rapidly slipping through her fingers. Photography is not permitted in the bank. This is another violation of our policies. Actually, Monica replied, her voice steady, according to Sterling National's own customer service policy, Section 3.4, customers have the right to document any interaction where they feel their rights are being violated. The specificity of her knowledge caught Rachel off guard, but only momentarily. Behind her eyes, questions were beginning to form. Who was this woman, really? How did she know company policies in such detail? How did she have Diane Vaughn's direct number? But rather than consider these questions, rather than pause to reassess the situation, Rachel's face twisted into an ugly sneer as she turned to the staff and security guard. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said, loudly enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "These people are always trying to game the system. They come in here thinking they know the rules better than we do, looking for any loophole to exploit." The mask had dropped completely now. No more pretense of security concerns or banking protocols. Just naked prejudice on full display, captured forever on the bank's own security system and Monica's phone. Customers were either watching in morbid fascination or pointedly looking away, pretending not to notice the spectacle unfolding before them. Even a few of the staff members were beginning to shift uncomfortably as Rachel's behavior grew increasingly erratic, the veneer of professionalism cracking to reveal the prejudice beneath. Eric, whose mockery had been so open earlier, now darted uncertain glances at his manager. This was going further than he had expected, crossing lines that even he recognized shouldn't be crossed in a professional environment. Megan, the teller who had first assisted Monica, looked physically ill, her complexion ashen as she witnessed the escalation of what had begun as a routine transaction. She had followed procedure, called her manager as required for large withdrawals, but this public humiliation of a customer wasn't what she had signed up for. Only Lucas remained steadfast in his support of Rachel, his crossed arms and rigid stance, a physical manifestation of the institutional barriers Monica had faced throughout her career. Through it all, Monica Reed stood perfectly still at the center of this storm, her dignity intact, waiting. The weight of the moment, not just for herself, but for every customer who had ever been dismissed, disrespected, or denied service based on their appearance, rested on her shoulders. The elevator chime sounded faintly in the distance. Rachel's head turned slightly at the sound, momentarily distracted. Something in the air had changed, like the pressure drop before a storm. The grand double doors of Sterling National's flagship branch burst open with such force that they slammed against the walls, the sound reverberating through the marble lobby like a thunderclap. Every head turned as Diane Vaughn strode into the space, her presence commanding immediate attention. The head of operations, second in command of the entire corporation, moved with the focused intensity of someone about to extinguish a fire. "Stop this immediately." Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority, not a request, not a suggestion, a command that froze everyone in place. Rachel Simmons's expression shifted from irritation to confusion as she recognized the executive. In the 15 years she'd managed this branch, Diane Vaughn had visited perhaps 3 times, always scheduled weeks in advance, always with a formal agenda. Her unexpected appearance, the fury evident in her stride, triggered the first real flicker of fear in her eyes. The staff, who had formed a wall of solidarity behind Rachel just moments ago, suddenly found themselves uncertain. Richard's smirk vanished. Mark's crossed arms dropped to his sides. Beth looked as though she might faint, the color draining from her face entirely. Rachel attempted to regain control of the situation, smoothing her hair as she stepped forward with a practiced customer service smile. "Miss Vaughn, what an unexpected pleasure. Is there something? Do you have any idea who this is?" Diane cut her off, gesturing toward Monica, who remained perfectly composed amidst the chaos. The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Rachel glanced at Monica, then back at Diane, confusion giving way to the first inkling of dread. Her mind raced through possibilities. Was she a friend of Diane's, a relative of a board member, a banking regulator, a potential high-net-worth client they'd been trying to court? The other customers in the branch had stopped all pretense of conducting their own business. Some had phones out, recording the confrontation. An elderly woman who had witnessed the entire ordeal nodded in satisfaction, as if justice was finally being served. Thomas, the security guard, took a deliberate step back from Rachel, instinctively distancing himself from what he now recognized as the wrong side of history. Diane approached Monica, her entire demeanor transforming as she did. The righteous anger she had directed at Rachel gave way to profound respect as she addressed the woman who had been treated so shamefully. "I am so deeply sorry you experienced this, especially here," she said, her voice carrying throughout the silent lobby. Then she turned back to face the staff, her expression hardening once more. "This," she announced, her voice ringing with authority, "is Monica Reed, the CEO of Sterling National, your boss." The words landed like physical blows. Rachel staggered backward as it struck. Richard's hand flew to his mouth, his eyes widening in horror as the realization of what he had done, who he had mocked, sank in. Mark's face drained of all color, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed repeatedly. Beth began to tremble visibly, tears welling in her eyes. 3 months earlier, in the grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel, Monica Reed had stood on a stage beneath crystal chandeliers and accepted the ceremonial key to Sterling National. The room had been filled with dignitaries, financial leaders, and press, all witnesses to a historic moment as she became the first Black woman to lead a top 10 national bank. Rachel Simmons had watched the ceremony on the live stream during a staff meeting. She had applauded politely along with her team, made appropriate comments about progress and leadership, and then, apparently she had forgotten, due to the undercover, or chosen not to recognize, the face of her own CEO when she walked into her branch. "We've been watching," Diane continued, holding up her tablet. On the screen, security footage from throughout the day played in crystal clear definition. We've seen how you treated Mrs. Reed, and we've seen how you treat others. The tablet displayed split-screen comparisons, a white customer making a large withdrawal, processed with smiles and efficiency, juxtaposed with a Hispanic customer's identical request, met with scrutiny and suspicion. A wealthy-looking client escorted directly to an office, while an elderly black woman waited 40 minutes for basic assistance. Every interaction in this branch is recorded, Diane said, her voice tight with controlled fury. Every single one. And what we've witnessed today is a pattern of discrimination so blatant, so egregious, that it violates not only our company policies, but federal banking regulations. She began listing the violations methodically, each one another nail in the coffin of Rachel's career. Differential treatment based on perceived race or socioeconomic status. Failure to follow standard verification protocols consistently across all customers. Creating a hostile environment for a client attempting to access their own funds. Falsely accusing a customer of potential fraud without evidence. Rachel's face had turned an alarming shade of red. The carefully constructed facade of her professional persona was crumbling before everyone's eyes. "This is a misunderstanding," she stammered, straightening her hair again, a nervous habit now rather than a power move. "We have serious security concerns with large cash withdrawals. The protocols—" "Save it," Diane cut her off. "We reviewed the footage of 3 similar withdrawals processed earlier today for other customers. The only protocol you followed consistently was discrimination." Richard stepped forward, tears streaming down his face, his previous confidence replaced by desperate self-preservation. "I was just following Rachel's lead," he pleaded. "We're trained to be cautious with unusual transactions." Mark attempted a different approach, his voice taking on a tone of professional concern. "There have been fraudulent schemes targeting this branch. We were simply exercising appropriate caution in line with—" "We have access to every email, every memo, every piece of communication you've sent within this bank's systems," Diane interrupted. "Do not make this worse for yourselves by lying." The main entrance opened again as 3 members of the board of directors entered the lobby, their expressions grave. Jonathan Prescott, Catherine Reynolds, and Dennis Whitehill, the highest authorities in the company, beside Monica herself, had come down from their executive suite to witness the reckoning in person. Their presence elevated what was already a catastrophic event for Rachel and her team to something unprecedented in the bank's history. Board members simply did not appear on the front lines of daily operations unless something extraordinary demanded their personal attention. The lobby, already silent, somehow became even quieter. Customers watched wide-eyed as the most powerful people in the organization formed a semicircle around Monica, a physical manifestation of the support that should have been there all along. Throughout the confrontation, Monica had remained silent, watching, not with satisfaction or vindication, but with a clear-eyed assessment of a leader witnessing a systemic failure that required correction. This wasn't personal for her. It was institutional in her responsibility to address. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, measured, and carried the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. "Rachel, Richard, Mark," she said, addressing each of them in turn, making deliberate eye contact. "You are terminated, effective immediately. No raised voice, no dramatic gesture, just the simple, incontrovertible exercise of power by someone who had earned the right to wield it." Your actions today have demonstrated that you are fundamentally incompatible with the values of this institution and the legal requirements of fair banking practices. Monica continued, this is not a suspension or a performance improvement opportunity. This is the end of your employment with Meridian Financial. Rachel's face contorted with a complex mixture of emotions, shock, anger, humiliation, and finally the dawning realization that her career of 15 years had just ended in a spectacular, public failure of her own making. You can't just, she began, but Monica raised her hand slightly and she fell silent immediately. I can, and I have, she said simply. Thomas, she nodded to the security guard who had been watching the scene unfold. Please escort these former employees to collect their personal belongings and then off the premises. Thomas straightened, nodding with newfound purpose. Yes, ma'am. As security led the three disgraced employees toward the back offices to collect their things, the remaining customers and staff watched in stunned silence. There was no cheering, no celebration, just the solemn witnessing of accountability being enforced at the highest level. Beth, the teller who had initiated the interaction but had shown discomfort throughout, stood trembling behind her counter, clearly expecting to be next. Monica approached her, and the young woman braced herself for the inevitable. Instead, Monica spoke quietly to her. The words weren't audible to most in the lobby, but Beth's expression transformed from terror to confusion to cautious relief. She nodded several times, wiping tears from her cheeks. It would later become known that Beth was placed on probation rather than terminated. Her willingness to acknowledge her mistakes and her visible discomfort with her colleagues' behavior had been noted by both Monica and the security footage. She would become one of the bank's most vocal internal advocates for equitable service in the months to come. As Rachel, James, and Stephen were escorted past the customers still waiting in the lobby, their personal items hastily packed into cardboard boxes, the full weight of what had transpired seemed to settle on everyone present. This wasn't just a dramatic firing. It was a public statement about what would and would not be tolerated in this institution moving forward. Monica Reed stood in the center of the branch that bore her company's name, surrounded by the leadership team that had recognized her value in full view of customers who now understood exactly who was at the helm of their bank. The transformation was complete. From being denied service to exercising the highest authority in a matter of minutes. The message couldn't have been clearer. Discrimination had no place in Sterling National, and those who perpetuated it had no future there. After the terminated employees had been escorted from the building, a heavy silence hung over the flagship branch of Sterling National. Customers remained rooted in place. Staff stood frozen behind their counters, all eyes fixed on Monica Reed as she surveyed what was now, undeniably, her domain. When Monica finally addressed the remaining staff, her voice carried not anger but resolve, the clear, steady tone of a leader who had identified a problem and was already formulating its solution. What happened today isn't just about three individuals making poor choices, she began, gathering the shell-shocked employees in a semicircle around her. It's about a culture that allowed those choices to seem acceptable, a culture we are going to transform, starting right now. The staff listened with rapt attention, many unable to meet her eyes, others nodding in shamefaced acknowledgement of truths they had long recognized but never confronted. Sterling National exists to serve all customers with dignity, respect, and fairness. These aren't just words on our mission statement. They are the standard by which every interaction will be measured moving forward. As she spoke, Diane Porter was already on her tablet, initiating emergency protocols rarely used in the bank's history, transferring management authority, securing access credentials, establishing temporary leadership until permanent replacements could be found. Every branch, every department, every role in this organization will be evaluated not just on profitability, but on equitable service, Monica continued. The metrics we value reflect the company we want to be. Lauren, the young teller who had initiated the interaction with Monica, but had shown visible discomfort throughout the ordeal, stood trembling at the edge of the group. When Angela approached her, tears streamed down the young woman's face. "I'm so sorry," Lauren whispered, voice breaking. "I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know what to do when Rachel and the others." Rather than dismissing the apology or offering easy absolution, Monica listened intently, recognizing the crucial moment for what it was, a genuine opening for change. Learning to stand up against wrongdoing, even when it comes from authority figures, is one of the hardest skills to develop, Monica told her. But it's also one of the most valuable. What happened next would become part of Sterling National's corporate lore, a moment referred to in training sessions and leadership seminars for years to come. Monica Reed, CEO of one of the nation's largest financial institutions, looked at the tearful young teller and saw not just remorse, but potential. "Lauren, effective immediately, you're being promoted to interim branch manager." The gasps from the staff were audible. Lauren's eyes widened in shock. "But you're someone who recognized that what was happening was wrong, even if you didn't have the tools or confidence to stop it," Monica cut in. "That awareness is the foundation we need to build on. You'll have support, training, and resources, but more importantly, you'll bring the perspective of someone who has seen firsthand how things can go wrong and is committed to making them right." 3 days later, Monica stood behind a podium emblazoned with Sterling National's logo, facing a sea of journalists, cameras, and recording devices. The press conference had been hastily arranged, but was meticulously choreographed to deliver a powerful message. "Today, Sterling National is announcing our new equitable banking initiative," Monica stated, her professional attire and commanding presence, a stark contrast to the modest clothing she had worn during her undercover visit. "This comprehensive program represents an investment of $50 million in anti-discrimination training, community outreach, and internal accountability systems." The board members flanked her on the stage, their unified presence a public demonstration of institutional commitment. What the journalists didn't know was how contentious the emergency board meeting had been, with several members initially balking at the scale of investment and the public admission of fault it represented. It had taken Monica laying out the legal, financial, and reputational risks of inaction, along with the security footage from the branch, to bring the holdouts around. Now they stood beside her, at least outwardly committed to the transformation she envisioned. Banking discrimination isn't just morally wrong. It's bad business, Monica continued, her words echoing through the conference hall. "When we fail to serve all communities equitably, we leave talent undeveloped, businesses unfunded, and potential unrealized." In the weeks and months that followed, Monica Reed became the face of corporate accountability in America. Her unwavering implementation of the promised changes, from revised hiring practices to overhauled performance metrics to community investment programs demonstrated that her commitment went far beyond damage control. Branch managers found their bonuses tied to equity metrics alongside traditional performance indicators. Anonymous customer experience surveys were disaggregated by demographic data to identify disparities. Training programs were redesigned with input from civil rights organizations and banking regulators. And in every Sterling branch, a new sign appeared beside the teller windows. All customers deserve respect, dignity, and fair service. If your experience does not reflect these values, please call this number. Below was Monica's direct office line. 6 months after the incident that transformed Sterling National, Monica once again donned casual clothing and visited branches unannounced. But this time, her purpose wasn't to expose discrimination. It was to witness the changes taking root throughout the organization. If you enjoyed the story, hit the like and subscribe button and share to others so they can learn from this story too.